point is, like I realized like you got to understand what your criteria is because you could go and analyze, properties for a month of Sundays and, take all your time. Like I started to realize like the people bringing deals to me need to understand criteria. They need to understand that, yes, I can put together, an acquisition soft cost budget, quickly analyze it, respond to you, but don't bring crap to me and make me do that, or you're going to do it for me. And then you bring it to me,
Hey everyone, it's Agostino. Now, as you know, I have a passion for real estate and truly enjoy bringing the best and brightest guests that share the same passion. Aside from stabilized multifamily, net lease, and other real estate that develops cash flow, development of historical properties and ground-up developments are especially interesting to me and, of course, to our next guest as well. They share the same passion as I do. Now, he has developed over $1.3 billion worth of real estate in New York City and beyond, but that wasn't always the case. In fact, he used to perform close-up magic in restaurants just to make extra money so he can afford diapers and baby formula for his young family. Eventually, he decided to make a change in his life and committed to using real estate to see that change come to life. He built his knowledge to find, fund, and facilitate real estate deals. This eventually grew into a substantial business where he put together thousands of deals and has empowered thousands of developers over the past 20 years. He is the founder of Global Real Estate Strategies, which helps guide investors, owners, and developers through complex investments and development projects, and is the author of the best-selling book, The Modern Wealth Building Formula. Now, with all that, I'd like to welcome Ken Van Liew to the show. Ken, buddy, thanks for coming on, man.
Hey, thank you, Agostino. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. You got me all excited. You got some great projects going on, and we're trading notes again, so real excited.
Looking forward to it. Yeah. Now, guys, like Ken has to say, you can reach him via his contact page at kenvanliew.com. Okay, Ken, go ahead and tell listeners about your journey.
Yeah, I started out with my dad just saying, go to college, and I wanted to be an engineer, but I went to college and I created the 6-year plan, so I failed a couple times, but I was a football player and I eventually put that gridiron experience, to use. So I was an all-state high school football player, get to college, and thank God I met my wife. I was taking calculus 2 for the 3rd time, and she helped me learn study skills. So I eventually graduated in engineering. And then my dad said, keep going to school. Got a couple master's degrees, got my license as a professional engineer. And what really changed my career was when I built a couple skyscrapers in New York City. And I was standing there and, I was literally 6 figures in debt because I just had twins. I was doing magic at night to hustle at restaurants. And I was like, I gotta do something different. And I said, if I could build $100 million building, I know I could do a $10 million building for myself. And if I do a $10 million building, I could pay myself a development fee, which you're in the business, so that could be 5%. The builder usually gets about 10% general conditions to pay the overhead. And another, 3-5% CM fee. So I was like, wow, I could pay myself like 16 or 17%. I'm going to go find a $10 million project. And my first deal was a $17 million project out of the box. It was a 113-bed assisted living using other people's money and other people's experience. And that's how it kind of started, and I'll fill in all the blanks. But today, just recently, and I'm proud to announce that I've been selected as the national expert, and I'm going to be on the Dennis Quaid Viewpoint Project, and we're creating a documentary called Real Estate Today, Keys to Investing, that's going to go out to 60 million households, and they're going to promote global real estate strategies and Ken Van Liew and all that kind of good stuff. So my purpose in life, which is I am integrity, an honest and loving leader to create magical, empowering skills and endless opportunities for all mankind, and to leave everyone with power, freedom, self-expression, and peace of mind. And I've been living that for a while, and it's finally brought me to this opportunity where I can really pay it forward at an accelerated rate. So it's going to be exciting.
Oh, that's going to be awesome. Well, send me the link, so I want to definitely check that out. Definitely want to see that. That's awesome. But no, I mean, I think that, we were talking about this in the green room, is that we started off doing stabilized assets and now just more recently switched over to doing development, because the way that we see it, it's almost like with all this cap rate compression that's taking place, it's almost not worth building, or rather it's not worth buying these existing assets and doing the whole value add strategy. You're better off building it because you get all the benefits that come along with it. With a newer asset, you get the tax abatements typically, and I guess things are a little different in a place like New York City, where you probably don't get the same sort of benefits there as you would in a place like Cleveland or in Tucson, Arizona, or whatever, right? I mean, I guess you have to consider the regulatory side of things when you're looking at some of these deals, right?
Yeah. Yeah. New York's a little different. And, in times like this, it's challenging, where I literally say now I build, horizontal skyscrapers, so we have, and I'll lean into your point, we have probably close to 100 acres in development of multi-use, from hotels to wellness centers to self-storage to flex office to townhomes to retail. And what we found, and you kind of leaned into it a little bit, the arena has changed, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to jump in a red ocean and start competing with everybody trying to buy the same thing. It's like a bunch of piranhas. When, I was very lucky, in the sense that over the last couple of years, I invested in some development deals where we were able to get the value adds that people are all fighting for in the multifamily. And this week we just got approval on a CVS pharmacy, and I have a 20-year lease paying me $581,000 a year, and that's a beautiful thing. Like, I was able to gain a few $1,000,000 in equity based on a foreclosure I bought when I seen the bottom falling out in New York City. There was a day I stood on Madison Avenue. I was doing I think it was about a $37 million penthouse for a billionaire friend of mine on 66 in Madison. And I was able, after one of the supers died from the mason, and I had Marines taking temperatures, I was able to get an essential services permit and keep the job open. But, one day I looked up Madison Avenue and there was like no cars and no buses. And I'm like, I'm getting out of here. New York's falling apart. And I called the client. He's screaming at me. He had COVID. And I'm like, Craig, people are scared. They don't want to go to work. I mean, I got the job open. I went to the governor's office and got the job open, but no one's showing up. It's like they're scared. So, fortunately, we all had to pivot, and you probably found the same thing. We were talking about that Grand Slam, in Cleveland, and we talked about Forest City and all that kind of good stuff. But, that was the way to go. Buy something that you could, development. And I'm not saying it has to be ground up development. You're doing essentially it's a development. You're going to, gut a whole shell and convert something into a totally different use. That's a development. You're doing major construction financing, paying yourself a development fee. So, I think the pivots and the things we're doing now, it enhances what you talked about a little bit before. You now come in to the arena in the blue ocean with a different approach, and you're fully capable. But then they go, wow, you're actually developing. Hey, we got this multifamily over here. You're interested? And then, boom, you're doing it all, and that's the beauty of being a developer,
Yeah. I mean, but I think for many people out there that might be listening, they may be doing multifamily right now, but making the move to development might be a little intimidating or scary, So, but you've been at this for a while. What sort of things should someone be considering before jumping into development? What sort of things should they be looking at?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I've created a runway for success, because, and when you write a book, you get a lot of people calling you, and you get all walks of life, and you get all different levels of experience, and, I used to joke around. They're like, how do you build a high rise? I'm like, you just stack one house on top of each other, it's literally, it's a very repetitive process, and like anything else, my first skyscraper was, kept me up late at night, and I didn't really know what to do, but people always want to help you. I used to ask the trades, and just learn trade by trade, and then eventually work myself up super to executive. But, the bottom line that I really want to make an emphasis, and where I came up with the whole concept of find, fund, and facilitate, is those processes apply for anything, right? So if you're doing a development, whether you're developing a house or a skyscraper, it's the same process, but the segments of the process are just a lot longer. So if you're going to build a house, it may take 6 months. If you're going to build a skyscraper, you're only moving a 30-story skyscraper. You're only moving in the first 7 floors in maybe 19 months, so it's a different animal. And then it takes another 18 months to finish the whole thing. So it's a different animal, but the processes are kind of the same, right? You have to find the deal. You have to fund the deal. You have to buy it out. You have to buy your materials. You have to focus on lead times. As you know, probably better than anybody, time is money. You got to be on schedule. Anybody can build off schedule and over budget. The trick is building on schedule and under budget, right? So that's what I pride myself on, But to answer your question, just look at, hey, Rome wasn't built in a day. You're going to take on, instead of an 800-pound gorilla, a 1,200-pound gorilla. So it takes a little longer to get your arms around it. When you start eating an elephant, you're going to take one bite at a time. My biggest advice would be, for guys like me that didn't know any better, that have now spent, over 130,000 hours in real estate engineering and development and construction, lean on a mentor. Find a mentor that could save you all those hours, right? Look at your opportunity cost. Look at the value of you. The thing I find is people undervalue themselves and they get hung up in, what I learned from Tony Robbins, the 2 primary fears, that they're not enough and that they're going to fail. And the bottom line, most people think in their head the story, I'm not enough, because they're missing a little piece of knowledge, right? So go out, get the knowledge, and then you'll feel like you're enough, and play in this game of that failure doesn't exist. Walt Disney failed 455 times at getting his approach to the bank to get the loan, but on 456, he got the loan. Thomas Edison failed 1,100 times, and figured out, why did I blow up the laboratory? But on the 1,100, he created light, So, it's really about creating a vision. I had vision boards all over my office for years, and then eventually you see it so clearly, it just anchors within your body. Like I was telling my wife the other day, in 2001, when I was with Tony Robbins, when the towers collapsed, that's when one of the times I was doing magic, because I've been a magician since I was 12. So it's always when Lehman Brothers crashed, I was in the restaurant doing magic again, whatever it took. It's because I give people more money, time, and magic in their life, so, I've been doing magic in my whole life. Every time I got in trouble, I just do some magic, right? And then we get back on track. But, the bottom line is, for those of you who haven't, take a look at the book, and I mentioned how it's just a game. There's a pregame warm up. You got to surround yourself with a dream team, and just get out there and figure out how to find, fund, and facilitate deals, and realize that a lot of people will help you. And it's not as intimidating as it looks. It's really just about taking that first step and asking a simple question like you asked, like, hey, what does it take to build a skyscraper? Or what does it take to go into development? And, and one of the things, I'll share with you, and I'd love to just give it to you for free. Years ago, I created this 12-foot linear matrix of the entire development process on the construction side, the management, et cetera, which shows you step by step, and it shows a whole New York City skyline. I would even, if we could figure it out, give it to your audience. It's a massive file that I created, but, that was how I tried to, lay it all out for people, and I just, I try to inspire people to learn from the top down, because I believe if you try to, eat a 1,200-pound gorilla or elephant, you're going to get massively confused, and you're going to get really frustrated. But the beauty of it is you're going to learn a heck of a lot more, and you're going to have massive breakthroughs that are going to bring you to something that you could never imagine. So, and it's not like, more risk, more reward, it's more calculated, you learn a little bit more, you get to go through like creativity, where you're actually coming up with a schematic idea, and then it turns into a concept plan. Like literally, we just put this whole concept plan for the downtown Lewisburg, North Carolina And then I have another 45 acres, that we're doing Lewisburg Falls and these destinations and concepts. You allow the teams to create it, what I call is my dream teams, that I create, when we enter these projects. And I think I hijacked the show. I'm going to let you say something for a minute, Agostino.
That's fine.
I didn't stop talking there, buddy.
But I think, but I think the point is, though, I think the point is what you said right from the beginning, though, is that getting the right mentor is probably the first thing right there. It's that, and I think you're right, though, is that many people that they devalue their own time. They don't want to spend the money or buy the book or whatever it is to get in front of someone who has the experience, who can just show them the way to do it. As opposed to, that's a ripoff. I don't want to do that. How many times I've heard that or have seen that posted in different places. It's ridiculous. It really is. It really
I remember
is,
walking out of a seminar one time, and I must have been in my 30s because I started late. And my wife bought me this seminar to go to. It was in New York City. It was with Robert Kiyosaki and Dolph DeRoos. And I literally and Stephen Lecter, Sharon Lecter was there, and this other guy, Bill Singer or something, Brian Singer. And I literally bought. I had like a cart coming out. I had all the courses. That was when I was a super, and I'm like, okay, I'm going into real estate. And it was funny. Years later, I connected with Dolph DeRoos, and he wrote the foreword to my book, and we're friends till today. And it was just amazing, how I took a hold of a mentor. I saw a vision. And I had a skill set, but everybody has a skill set. There was a book. I didn't even know what syndication. It said syndication and joint ventures. I'm like, what is syndication? When I first grabbed the thing off the shelf, it was like 25 years ago. And the first page said, anybody can be a syndicator. A syndicator could be a builder, it could be a clerk, it could be a lawyer, it could be like anybody could be a syndicator. I was like, wait a minute, I just got to bring people together. I can do that. I'm a magician. But that's how it started,
Yeah. So aside from finding the mentor and really understanding and learning the material, one thing that I often tell people as well is make sure you're bringing something to the table. So when you do talk to that mentor, let's say, I know that you do some training as well, but part of it is that hopefully they're bringing something to the table. Like they're bringing some effort, they're bringing a deal, they're actually putting in the effort to put a deal together at the same time. Where a lot of people just don't want to do that, or they're just not able to do it. I'm not really sure, but really understanding the financing side of things, how to do the feasibility analysis to even determine if there's a deal here or not. I mean, all these different things are absolutely critical to learn, and you get all this stuff from a mentor, really.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I created this thing called the paper napkin analyzer where, when I was at New York University studying, the guy would you got to do it on the back of a paper napkin or a piece of paper, handwrite it out. Figure out what your construction cost is. Figure out what the acquisition. Use 25% of soft plus hard. Come up with your hard plus acquisition. 25% would equal soft. That gives you your total development cost. Look at the revenue. If it's $50 million coming in, and it's $100 million project, you need $30 million to go in, $50 million over $30 million, that's your ROI. If you hit a certain like 1.3 or 1.5 back in the day there, I think it was syndicatable, and then I put that into a little spreadsheet. But the point is, I realized you got to understand what your criteria is, because you could go and analyze, properties for a month of Sundays and, take all your time. Like I started to realize the people bringing deals to me need to understand criteria. They need to understand that, yes, I can put together, an acquisition soft cost budget, quickly analyze it, respond to you, but don't bring crap to me and make me do that, or you're going to do it for me and then you bring it to me, So, the key is really filtering it. And, like, for example, myself, I know that if someone is committed into development, I'm not here to sell you a program, because the development it's like a lifestyle, right? I have a program that's called How to Master Real Estate Development. It was my program, 8-figure deals with no money down. And that gives you $100,000 worth of assets that I created through my first deal, which was a bond deal. Like I spent $600,000 in legal fees, but, I give it all away so that people could start learning from the top down. I don't care how confused you get, because I created a library that if you worked in reverse and you looked at this development thing and you said, this is like a different foreign language. But then when you started studying modern wealth building for me, like, okay, this makes a little more sense. And then if you wanted to start in residential and you look at my financial freedom protocol program, like, wow, this guy did 137 deals in 1 year. That maybe I'll just do this, So you look at my stuff and you have an option. And then my investment enterprise, which I tease people, but it's the Cosa Nostra of real estate. I'm the godfather. It's invitation only. And if you get invited to come in, you can never get out. So, it's a lifetime program. And the beauty of it is that once you get in, you will be successful unless you're a quitter. And nobody that I usually read and interview is a quitter. So what that does is it brings relationship equity to the table, and you become part of a black book and a family where, hey, if Agostino needs money, let me call Raven. Or if he needs a construction consultant, one of the members needed a hotel estimated, Chris jumped on a plane and went and estimated the hotel. Another guy was doing a fix and flip. One of the architects said, hey, you need to switch that kitchen around. So like there's people in there just constantly giving what I call is relationship equity. And I think I've created something. I know I've created something that is absolutely magnificent.
Yeah, no, that's the kind of thing that it really requires time, energy, and money for anybody that really wants to get into this. They got to spend the money and spend the time to do it, and of course spend the money, because there's those sorts of relationships that you need to build success. And I learned it the hard way. Everything I built on my own. That's how I did it. I'm not saying it's the right way to do it. It could have been more efficient ways of getting it done, but that's how I did it.
And you could reverse the psychology. Like people look at it, oh, I got to spend the money, right? But if they look at it, that they can't afford not to spend the money, because if you think about it, it's such a simple formula. Mm-hmm. If you're a normal person with half a brain is worth like a couple $100 an hour, right? Period. Like I don't, America maybe doesn't want to pay them, but they're worth, someone's worth, let's just say $100, right? So if someone takes 100 hours to figure something out, that's 10 grand. If you can show them how to do that in 10 hours, you save 9 grand. That's a lot of money.
Yeah. That's right. And people don't look at it that way. They don't look at it that way. I mean, there's so much to learn with this type of stuff. I mean, there's like, actually you touched on this earlier, is how you have these different teams working in different places. I mean, you have to supervise all these different projects all running at the same time. You just don't pick that up in a book somewhere. It takes, really interfacing with the right people to really learn how to do that, right? And putting that stuff together.
Yeah, and they do have owners, advisors. So, that what you said may be a little intimidating in the sense that, yeah, there's a lot of projects going on and a lot of things. But as you get into this, you learn all the exact questions to ask. And it's like anything else. Building a skyscraper or the projects you're involved in, it's a system. Like your contractor, I don't know how involved you are in the daily, work, but as the owner, you must have you had owner meetings on a weekly basis with your architect and engineer, during, conceptual planning. And then your contractor has a weekly meeting with the trades, and the owner can go to the weekly meeting if he chooses. So, I mean, it's a constant follow-up. But once you put those systems in place, and like we were talking earlier, you hired a local GC or CM said, and you had a relationship with them. Once you establish those relationships, that guy's on your dream team. He's the guy you call to give you your construction estimates. He's the guy you call to give you a bid. You give him the last look. You establish those relationships. The guys that did my first job are still helping me, and that's the beauty of it. But I call it the dream team from the old Olympics, in the 90s when I was just getting started. I was like, I need a dream team right now. They just won the gold medal.
Yeah. But, that's right. Now, when it comes to building stuff these days, like as far as getting approvals and different types of how should I say, permits and things like that. I mean, one thing I remember Donald Trump saying is that zoning is everything when it comes to these deals. It is 100% everything. First off, how do you do it in a place like New York City? But then how do you do it in other areas that you might be developing in these days?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm going to talk about 3 different locations because most people, because you hear New York City, thinks New York City is a harder zoning challenge, where New York City, there is no zoning challenge. So in New York, you have a map that tells you what your zone is. So if you're in an R10 zone and you have a certain, that means you have like a 10 FAR. If you have a 100 by 100 site, you could build 100,000 square foot. It's super straightforward. There's 2 approaches. The architect can either put some, I call them cartoons together, and literally go in and self-certify it. And then on the back end, you get inspections to death, or on the front end, do the full boat of all the drawings and docs and get a little less inspections on the tail end. Cause then you do controlled inspections, and the architect can control the process versus the DOB coming in and inspecting on the self-certification. So New York is really cut and dry, and where they take advantage of you is if you're, developing on the corner and they want you to like fix the subway station, they can bang you for like an extra couple million. A lot of times when they do that, they'll give you an extra FAR, which means you can add a $5 or $10 million penthouse at the top. So, one hand's washing the other. But, looking at what I have now found across the nation is the beauty of, being from New Jersey, and probably one of the toughest states for zoning. I mean, we just got tortured for a year and obtained the approval that I was mentioned to you on the CVS. I think I mentioned, on Chester, New Jersey, in the town center at the former Larson's Turkey Farm. And literally they gave us just, approval for phase 1. We got to go back for more torture. And the torture just never ends. And they spend your money and, hundreds of thousands of dollars out of your escrow account. They don't give a crap who you are. And to give you the other side of the coin, I'm doing a project in Lewisburg, North Carolina, where literally the guy's like, yeah, jump in my truck. I'm going to go show you where you're going to connect your sewer and water. And then the next thing you know, you're sitting with the planner and they're like, Mr. Van Liew, just tell me whatever you want to do, and then we'll figure out how to navigate. And I go in with this plan, 45 acres with hotels, self-storage, flex office, retail, like the whole. He's like, hey, that looks good. I was like, you gotta be kidding me, right? So literally, I've created a planned unit development where I'm writing the standards. All my civil engineering expertise comes in place, and we're literally writing the code. It's tying into like the 2030 plan. They already asked us to come down. We put a plan together for the whole downtown Lewisburg. And, I was talking about the approach. Like the next thing you know, people are going to come bringing multifamily, other deals to us, And we just came in nice and quiet, and just serving and asking people how we can help. And it brings opportunity,
Yeah. Now, what are your general thoughts, though, about where the pricing of materials are going right now? Because I tell you, I mean, it's what we're finding is that roofing materials are adjusting, like it seems to be every day, like there's a new price coming out. So we're trying to get these vendors to commit to a certain price for everything. I mean, how, and you've been through a bunch of cycles now, how have you been able to control that in the past, and how do you see it going in the future?
Yeah. I mean, I come from a little different school. So, a lot of it is corruption, right? So yes, the fact is that, they couldn't make chips for a while, stuff got shut down, and did they fall behind on production? Yes. But then the industry makes it corrupt and they lie for another 6 or 8 months and, gouge everybody until you put your foot down and go like, I'm just going to go somewhere else, but we're definitely finding, materials in some cases were like 50% more. There was a shortage with a lot of the larger piping for underground piping. We're having problems right now getting joists, long lead times, looking at redesigning some things. So there is a big challenge. Where I see it going is, like I said, everybody's riding the COVID bandwagon and, rake everybody over the coals. I would say in another few months, things will start to stabilize and get back to normal. And like anything else, if people are going to cause everything not to pencil out again, like they did in 2008, then we're going to have another collapse. And that's when I lost $300 million in one day when Lehman Brothers crashed. So, I don't think it's going to go to that point. I see the demand for housing like so crazy and the supply is so short that, I don't think there's going to be like a crash. There'll be an adjustment. but I don't, I don't think, I don't think the frenzy that's happening is going to stop for a little while. There is a frenzy with the whole residential market.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. So here's a question near and dear to my heart then, because what we're doing right now, our strategy, like this Rockefeller deal I told you about before, so it's going to be a $130 million deal, probably about a 2-year timeline to build it out. Very, very aggressive timeline. But our partners, I've seen them do these types of large projects in a very short amount of time. And but aside from this one, most of the projects that we're doing have a fairly short development time, and they were between 12 to 18 months. And they're a little bit on the smaller side compared to the kind of stuff you're doing. And I'm purposely doing those smaller projects because I believe that long term, I just don't know that the same demand will continue in the next 24 to 36 months, and that's a concerning point to me, because I know that in 2008, remember cranes in the air and people just left those cranes and just walked away,
Those 500 cranes I was a sick guy that day.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
It was scary. It's interesting, we don't have a crystal ball. I think that the whole universe has changed. There's, people are looking to upgrade their living, and some people just don't believe in buying. So I think the rental market, and also because of the squeeze, just economically, I think rental, will continue. But I don't have a crystal ball. And I think the product that you were talking about, it didn't have like a crazy number to get in. And for 100, for something like that, you should be able to, unless there's structural problems, you should be able to get in, for, I would say, a couple $100 a square foot, probably $200 a square foot, maybe a little more. But, for something like that, you may, were you going to go full rental? Were you thinking doing any condos? I mean, you could always phase it, if you had to, but, the numbers aren't so crazy. And do it. Did you say it was 30 stories or?
No, the building that we're doing right now, this is only 17 stories.
17, yeah.
Yeah. And the other ones we're doing are pretty much ground up development. They're only 3 stories. I mean, those ones are not high rises at all. But there's another high rise that we're targeting. It's going to be about 16 stories, another redevelopment play that we're working on right now. So, I mean, and again, it's like I'm trying to be very, very careful about what we're getting into, because I don't want us to get cold cocked, 36 months from now, that kind of thing. I'm trying to get them wrapped up as quickly as possible, because that's a very concerning point to me anyway. I don't know if I'm just being overly cautious or what,
It's one of those things, you have to decide, what's going to make you feel good. I mean, I've been in that situation, it wasn't mine, but we had some money in it. We got clipped on a building on 96th Street where we finished it. The rental market, stalled because of COVID, and we were going to refi and try to, sell it as a condo. No, I'm sorry, it was condo. The condo market wasn't selling. We tried to change it to a rental, and literally we had the financing, lined up, but we ended up losing it. Literally they gave it back to the bank. So, fortunately, we, the group that invested, we only lost like $500,000, but it could have been a lot worse, and, I can understand your concern. Trust me.
Yeah. Well, we got Rockefeller. We actually did the acquisition of the actual building during COVID, that's a whole other show, man. That's a whole other discussion.
We're going to do that again. We're going to do this again. And then I'll tell you how I renovated the Lehman Mansion on Millionaires Row. We'll get into that.
There we go.
And it was right next to Rockefeller's house. It was Rockefeller, Lehman, oh my gosh, Vanderbilt. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll tell you, it was a nightmare, but we pulled it off. And but we had the similar sort of scenario where we had two lenders already lined up, and then both lenders bailed on us, and we had to go to a different lender to get it closed. We got it closed, but it was a one hell of a ride. That's for sure. That's for sure. Yeah. Now, when it comes to getting investors for your deals, right? So how are you getting those investors? How do you put those deals together? I know you syndicated it. You touched on that earlier. Maybe discuss like a little bit about the syndication aspect of how you put this stuff together.
Yeah. So, and you actually, I think, hit the buzzword when we were talking, I did the whole one-off thing for years and, LLC, and then I would do the, where you waive you get the exemption. So it was kind of like as much of a fund structure as I was going to get, and like for example, on the CVS, when you get to a certain point, you can make a phone call and, I raised $5 million real quick and, we were able to acquire it. And then I have the soft costs all in place, but it wasn't always like that. There was times where I was raising 5 million, 50 grand at a time, hoping somebody would write a $500,000 check, so it changes. But, the beauty of it is if when you succeed and you deliver a return, those investors are, they stay with you. And, that's the beauty of it. But, today I'm in a position and, I shared some of the success and, the funny thing is I joke, the overnight success only took 33 years, 256 days, 17 hours and 16 minutes. But, we finally got there. But, the point is, I'm now in a position where, I want to have, I guess, more choices, right? So I was never in a position where I could just go myself and develop $100 million project. I had to bring in some investors and partner, and, I'm now getting, money offered to me and considering, doing a fund where, the numbers they're talking about, we can turn it into $1 billion. And, the beauty of it is that just because, I put 130,000 hours in, I know a little bit about artificial intelligence and machine learning and, how to find all the best deals and how to buy them with like little or no money and how to create like tremendous value through the entitlement process. And we can go and acquire anything. So, and then the development process where, is kind of down to a science. It's unconsciously conscious, it gets done. The point is like, in order to feed the machine that I've built, I'm in discussions now to go the fund route, and we would, put the technology behind it and create something really, really extraordinary. And you don't see many of them. And, people always like, would talk me down, but, I want to create literally an entitlement fund, and I believe now that people are, have the mentality, I'm going to invest in a opportunity zone fund, which isn't going to pay them cash flow at all. Maybe, we'll give them a tremendous tax benefit. And God bless the guys that make $50 million a year to come buy conservation easements and invest that kind of money into opportunity zones. But why would you want to invest in, I'm not putting Grant Cardone down, he's my buddy, but why would you want to invest in an A class that's going to pay you, such a minimal margin when you can get in a development that could pop like a 200% return, right? Doesn't make sense. So, if it takes 3 years to recognize the value, it's the perfect example. I bought Chester 2 years ago for 2.9, put about 1.3 in, and now it's worth like 9.5 after the approvals, after like a year and a half. So it's not a bad return.
Not bad at all.
Yeah, for drawing pictures, and I tell people that. My friend here, staying at his place, he was doing single family homes 2 years ago. He read my book. He's now doing like 100-unit development in Lakeland, Florida. He's like big time developer. I was like, whoa, Franklin Cruz, my man.
Yeah. I like that, and I like that market too. Florida is just an amazing market to be developing in. Yeah, there's yeah, I mean, we're looking at doing some stuff in Florida too. That's a whole other show in terms of just overall discussions around, job growth and things like that. That's It's like that's a whole other topic right there, though. That's a whole other topic. So good.
I didn't tell you I have OCD, ADD. I'll go on all kinds of tangents with you.
No, I mean, that's the thing. We could chat all day long about some of this stuff too. That's for sure. That's for sure. So I know we're coming up to our time here. So for someone listening right now, if you had a piece of bulletproof advice for them, now what would you tell them?
Yeah, I would say focus on time blocking, which is time you dedicate going into zone action on like the one most important thing in your life. So if you want to succeed in real estate, and be somewhere at a certain point 5 years down the road, you should be blocking certain time each day to do that, and just get really good at time blocking, because there are so many distractions in the world with all the social media. You got to check out a few times a day and go into deep work. I'd recommend reading that book, Deep Work, by Cal. I forgot his last name. And that's the real key. I mean, if I was going to tell people, morning routine and time blocking, a little bit of meditating, and you're good to go.
Yeah. Love it. Okay. And of course, your website as well. You have some great material on your website that people should definitely check out, right?
Yeah. I just came out with the 11 Millionaire Secrets, which I tell you what I believe is the key to my success, and we literally just shot those videos, this past Wednesday. We shot 32 videos in 5.5 hours, just getting content out on my YouTube channel. But definitely check out my 11millionairesecrets.com and at kenvanliew.com. We give the book away for free. It's actually shipping. And if you want an e-copy, you can get in touch with me. I'm pretty easy to get in touch with, because I'm not hiding, and, I'm not in it for the informational marketing, guru type of business. I'm here to make sure that people want to get involved in real estate, that they succeed. And we take a totally different approach, because failure doesn't exist.
That's right. We'll send over that document too that you mentioned earlier, because I can take all this stuff and we're going to put it all in the show notes as well, so we can make it available to everybody listening right now. So. Yeah.
And I'll share like this Google Drive link, but people that are really interested could take that and go to Staples, and then they print it on this like Canva. I put the little grommets in it and I hang it on the wall, and you literally have the whole development process right on the wall.
Nice. Well, I want to do that for myself then. Love to do that.
Absolutely. This has been a great show, man. Are we any more nuggets? Like, what are we doing here? Like, I'm ready for the next show. No, we had a good time today. Thank you, Agostino.
Yeah, we're going to do a part 2, I'm sure.
Sounds great, man. Sounds great, buddy.
All right, guys. Well, if you want to reach out to Ken, you can reach out to him at his website, his contact page, kenvanliew.com. Don't forget to check out his great material. He's got some awesome stuff out there. And, and of course, we're going to make all this stuff that we just talked about available in the show notes as well. So definitely check that material out. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next episode. Take care.
You've been listening to the Bulletproof Cashflow Show. We hope you've enjoyed the show. We know we had fun. Make sure to visit our Apple Podcast page and leave us a 5-star review. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from the show. For real estate coaching, events, and resources, head up bulletproofcashflow.com. Till next time.
No information in this episode should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Any investment opportunities mentioned on this show are limited to accredited or sophisticated investors. Any investments will only be made with proper disclosure and subscription documentation, and subject to all applicable laws. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for individualized advice.